In 1944, while war thundered across Europe, a woman in Britain was put on trial for witchcraft, not in the Middle Ages, but in the age of radar and radio. Her name was Helen Duncan, the last person ever imprisoned under Britain's Witchcraft Act. But was she a fraud exploiting grief, or a psychic who knew too much for her own safety? Tonight we reopen the case and ask, what really happened inside the trial of Britain's last witch? It was November 1941. At a séance in Portsmouth, home to the Royal Navy, Helen claimed a spirit had appeared. The ghost, she said, was a sailor from the HMS Barham. He told her the ship had just sunk, but that couldn't be. The Admiralty hadn't announced the sinking yet. In fact, it was still classified. Only top officials and a few grieving families knew the truth. So how did Helen Duncan know? Was it trickery or espionage disguised as the supernatural? MI5 wanted answers. In January 1944, police raided a Portsmouth séance mid-ritual. When they burst in, Helen was deep in trance, a ghostly shape forming beside her. An officer lunged, grabbing the ectoplasm it tore, revealing nothing but white cloth. Helen screamed. The crowd panicked. Officers gathered her props, notebooks, even scraps of cheesecloth, and charged her with pretending to conjure spirits under the Witchcraft Act of 1735, a law meant for charlatans, resurrected in the middle of the 20th century. The trial opened in March 1944 at the Old Bailey. Prosecutors argued Helen was a wartime menace, exploiting the bereaved and possibly leaking naval secrets through her seances. The defense insisted she was sincere, a Christian spiritualist offering comfort in a dark time. Witnesses spoke of puppet heads and cheesecloth spirits. Others swore they'd felt their dead son's hand in hers. After just 25 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty. Helen Duncan was sentenced to 9 months in Holloway Prison, the last witch condemned by British law. Helen served her sentence quietly, but the outrage was loud. Spiritualists across Britain protested, calling her a martyr to religious freedom. The government took note. In 1951, the Witchcraft Act was repealed, replaced by the Fraudulent Mediums Act, ending centuries of witch trials once and for all. Helen returned to her seances until 1956, when she collapsed during one allegedly interrupted by police. To her followers, she died because they broke the circle. To skeptics, she died unrepentant, a trickster to the end. Even in an age of bombers and codebreakers, Britain still burned candles against the dark. The Helen Duncan case is a mirror, showing how belief and fear can outlive reason. Perhaps the real magic wasn't in her seances, but in our endless need to believe that the dead still whisper and justice still listens. This was Courtroom Grimoires.